Black Panther, Wakanda Forever today.
Yep.
And yeah.
Yeah, let's get into it.
Let's get into it. We have our criteria: plot, characters, originality, enjoyment, cinematography and the effects, voice, just acting, attachment, and then the ending of the finale. So let's start with the plot. And you can go first.
Thank you. This, to me...
You're welcome.
Hey, I'm trying to actually get my review right.
My bad.
This feels like one of the only Marvel movies that doesn't really feel like a Marvel movie because it takes itself serious. Like, there's still jokes in the movie, not nearly as much as what they've been putting out lately. It's not nearly as quippy and as formulaic as what they've been doing, which is nice. I mean, they're kind of forced to take itself... It's forced to take itself more serious because of Chadwick Boseman's passing, and like there's a lot of tribute to him in it, and it's always very well done. But because of it's a serious movie, they can't undercut serious topics like that with jokes, which is what they tend to do. Where it's like something serious happens, it's like, well, that just happened. It's like, no, this is serious, and it's finally like it's taking itself serious, and so because of that, it doesn't feel super quippy, which I very much liked. There's also a lot of dialogue in the movie, and one complaint that I've seen about the movie is like too long and not enough action. And there definitely could have been more action, but to me the best part was the dialogue because it's so well written, and the universe that they're building upon, like the inner world politics that they deal with, it's very, very well done, and I like all the dialogue a lot. And so overall, I gave the plot a 23 out of 25.
Super high. I disagree. I didn't dislike the plot. I thought that it was... I kind of get where those complaints are coming from with the dialogue and the action. If the movie was 30, 40 minutes shorter and it had the same amount of action in it, I would understand it. But there's a lot of dialogue and just like long scenes of characters talking about things that the audience already knows or has already heard.
Like explaining it for the second time, kind of thing.
Yeah, that like it's just like it kind of gets repetitive, and I was pretty bored throughout the majority of this movie. Like the beginning of it's nice and cool and fast, and then like we get some really awesome monologue scenes about like T'Challa and all that, and then like the middle portion of the movie, the second act really was just a slog. Like it was just non-stop boredom. And then the third act was too fast. But like it wasn't like a bad type of boredom. It was just like I was pretty bored and yawning in the theater, which I don't do in the theater. So that was like whatever. But like the plot they had was kind of simple, but at the same time, they were doing a decent amount of stuff. It was good. They also had some subplots that I think shouldn't have been in the movie.
Agreed.
Surrounding Agent Ross and a different character. For spoiler reasons, I won't say who.
They're definitely just setting something up in the future.
They were setting something up that
like,
I think that nobody needed to see.
It didn't fit into this plot. It didn't need to be there.
Like, it doesn't feel important, and they weren't, like, I don't know. We'll see in the future, though. But as for right now, I thought it was pretty unnecessary. And so I didn't care for that. And so I gave the plot a 16 out of 25.
That's low.
No, that's a pass.
Next
is going to be the characters.
You're up first, I think.
Yeah. I would say for the most part, I liked the main cast. I thought, dang it, the first time we filmed this, I had to look up how to pronounce her name. What was
Okoye?
Okoye. She had a pretty, like, not minor role, but like a less major role in the first movie, and she had a major role in this movie. Like, she did a lot, and I was very happy because the first movie I didn't care about her that much because she wasn't important, but this movie she was like really cool, and I really liked her character, and she was probably, besides M'Baku, because M'Baku's just M'Baku, probably my favorite character in the movie, honestly. Shuri was a great character. Ramonda, the mother, was like really good, and like, I mean, they had a lot going on.
Yeah.
So I feel for them. I did not like Riri. She wasn't like an awful character, but she didn't fit in this movie. I don't think she was needed at all. Like, I get that a lot of the plot revolves around her, but she didn't have to be in the movie after they talked about her for the first time. So,
like, she kind of incites what the movie has to do.
yeah.
But, like, after she incites it, there's no reason for her to be.
Yeah, she could have left and it would have been fine. But she was like the quippiest character, and she wasn't funny. Like, we didn't need her as comic relief. We had M'Baku, who was like actually saying funny things, and so she just wasn't necessary. I didn't care for her. I didn't like Namor as a villain. He was just whatever. He wasn't the worst Marvel villain, but in like Marvel villains, there's a lot of standout villains, and then there's a lot of really bad villains. He doesn't like make it to the bad area, but he's like just kind of in the middle for me. So
What do you give characters?
I give characters an 11 out of 15.
Okay. I did like Namor, but I do wish they had gone a little bit more into his backstory. They explained it, but it was a little fast, and I wish they had done a little more with that, because he's got a really interesting backstory.
Yeah.
The only other character I didn't like was Riri, or Ironheart, as well. I mean, her character is basically the same as Shuri, but it's executed much more poorly. Like, she's super young, super genius, is like her character. And the way she fits into the plot, she's important because, like I said, she does like kind of incite the main plot, but she didn't need to be in the movie nearly as much as she was. I thought she was funny. Like, for the most part, her jokes landed. But at the same time, I didn't really want there to be any jokes. Like, I wish, like I said earlier, I thought I liked that it was more serious.
Like, M'Baku's jokes felt natural, but hers felt like somebody in the writing room was like, ooh,
make her say this.
Make her say a
like,
funny line.
She had the most,
next.
like, Marvel-isms. Like, stereotypical Marvel type of jokes.
I also didn't like how she was introduced.
Yeah, she wasn't really likable. Like, Shuri, she's a genius, but it's kind of, like, endearing. With Riri, it's kind of like she's a genius, and she's not snobby about it necessarily, but the way they introduce it is snobby. Like, she builds a machine that's like super advanced or whatever, and they're like, how in the world did you build this? And she says like, oh, well, this was just my homework or something like that. It's like, what are you saying? Like, okay, you're smart, we get it.
Yeah,
like,
we get it. You can shut up now.
Yeah, I don't know. And she seemed to always have exactly what they needed at the right time.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know. I didn't like her.
I
But
also didn't care for the other person.
overall, every character was super well fleshed out. I mean, like you said, Okoye, she was super cool in this movie. Queen Ramonda, she was amazing. I mean, the acting was phenomenal, so that helped a lot too. But
We'll get there.
I'm sorry. Shuri, her character had a lot of depth to it this time around too, which is also the first Black Panther. Obviously, she was just a side character, but she was also really interesting in that movie too. But in this one, it's like it expands on that more. Can't remember the character's name, but whoever Lupita Nyong'o plays, I can't remember her name, but she is very well fleshed out too. Overall, Nakia.
I just looked it up.
Oh,
I didn't know that.
I got you. The only character I really didn't care for was Riri, but everyone else was phenomenal. So I gave characters a 13 out of 15.
Okay.
Not a huge difference.
Up next is enjoyment. Wait, no, is it originality?
Wait, really? Oh,
Yeah.
am I first?
Yeah, you're first.
We were talking about this earlier, and we disagree on this.
We disagree.
Although we really shouldn't, because it's a 1 point difference. Like, it's like, who really cares?
I should lower mine, but I'm not going to.
Say, bro. For a superhero movie, I think this was incredibly original. It has a lot more to do with the politics in the Marvel universe, and like Wakanda's relations to the other countries, and we haven't really seen that before, and I thought that was super interesting and really well done. I normally don't think superhero movies are all that original. Like, it's good guy versus bad guy kind of thing. But in this, everything that they do that's been done before already is really well done, and there's not a whole lot of stuff that they do that's like been repeated over and over again. Like, for the most part, this is really original, so I gave it a 5 out of 5. What'd you give it, Caleb?
I think I have to do a mid-filming score change.
No, don't do that.
I cannot, and I've been thinking about it, and the more I think about it, the less original it gets. It's original for a superhero movie. It does a lot of stuff, like, and it had to be original, but then, like, I kept thinking of all these things that, like, it does, that other movies have done. Like, we were talking about how, like, well, a lot of this movie is that there's an absence of a superhero that everybody needed or whatever, but, like, that's also been done. Like, Superman died in the DC universe. I mean, they did it horribly, but he did die, and in whatever it's called, Justice League, they were missing Superman. So, like, that's the same. They did it better, way better, and definitely better in this movie. Infinitely better, I don't know. They did it way better in this movie. Then there's also, like, a really bad vengeance arc at the end of the movie. Like, I thought it was done really poorly. Like, something happens to a character, and then in, like, the next couple of scenes, essentially, she gets to the point where she can enact vengeance, but she decides not to. It's like, most vengeance arc movies that do that, where they decide not to be vengeful, the bad thing happens at the beginning of the movie, and then it takes the entire movie of character development. But this movie, she gets, like, 10 minutes. So it doesn't make sense why she would, like, she didn't really have much happen.
That's more like a plot component, though.
I guess. But I'm mentioning it
here. Yeah, because
it's vengeance. And, like, vengeance arcs are done all the time, and I think they're pretty boring most of the time because they're all the exact same thing. And this one was no different. And then it was also a superhero movie, good versus bad. It was like, I mean, there were scenes where, like, the villain is talking to the hero about why they think they're in the right or whatever. So, like, it did enough original things.
One thing that I did like, though, is that
like, he's shown as, like, this scary guy that's willing to kill people, and then you meet him and he's like, oh, like, he, like, introduces himself and he's, like, making vague threats, and then, like, they actually talk to him and he's like, oh, maybe he's a good guy. They subvert your expectations. And then you talk to him more, and then like, oh, never mind, he's a maniac. He wants to kill everybody. So they like flip flop it, which you think would get annoying, but I think that was pretty good.
Yeah.
So that was kind of original. You don't see that very often. But I gave the original. No.
Raise the score back, I think.
More I think about it, it'll probably get to a 1 one day. Not really. It's a 3 out of 5. Enjoyment is next. This is where the movie lost the most points for me. It was, as I said in the plot, it was really boring. I was like close to falling asleep in the theater. Like, a lot of the movie is just characters talking about things that I already know, so I'm not interested in it. And then there's like the whole subplot with the Americans that was just like super unnecessary, and it drained the movie. Because, like, again, if that whole subplot wasn't in the movie, I think I would have enjoyed this movie probably 5 more points. Like, it just made, because I was getting so bored in those that I wanted a cool scene, and then when it went back to the other characters having dialogue, I was like, I wanted a cool scene. This is dialogue. But there were a lot of like really good monologues, so it kind of balanced out. Like,
the dialogue in this movie probably was the best of any Marvel movie ever. I can't think of one that's...
I don't know about that.
I mean, just probably because they had to take itself seriously. It's like, I don't know, plus the...
I'd have to go back and watch them all, but I still think, like, No Way Home is a nearly perfect movie, so... But I gave enjoyment a 15 out of 25.
Okay. I enjoyed the movie quite a bit more than Caleb. It is a very long movie, but to me it didn't ever really slow down too much to the point where I was bored in the theater. So, like other than the scenes with the Americans, because that was kind of a pace change, but overall I still enjoyed the scenes. It's just like they didn't really fit into the movie. It definitely could have been shorter, but I don't think it could have been like more than 20 to 30 minutes shorter.
I think it could have been 2 hours long.
I don't know. I mean, the plot was just really dense. Like, there were a lot of moving parts. And other than that subplot with the Americans, I don't think there was a whole lot that they could have cut out. Because most of it was pretty integral to the story. And it kept my attention the whole time. So I gave it a 23 out of 25.
Okay. Effects / the cinematography.
Mm-hmm. Overall, I liked the effects quite a bit. I think the first Black Panther cinematography was better.
That scene with like the camera's
Yeah,
upside
that's what I'm
down and
thinking
then
of.
flips around
Yeah,
like Killmonger.
it's got a
like
lot
the
of
best
really-
shot scene in
It's
Marvel.
really dope. But the special effects in this movie, for the most part, are really well done. There's a couple points where it looks kind of iffy, like there's like a spaceship kind of thing, or a ship that has a vortex that like comes down and can suck you up, and like the vortex of that looks kind of weird. But it kind of has a lot more really good effects than bad ones. And even in that, it's not bad. It's just kind of weird looking, like it doesn't fit in the shot. But like the underwater empire they show, that's beautiful, and I loved it. So overall, I gave the effects a 4 out of 5.
That's fair. I kind of almost agree. I thought that like the bad mid effects were almost equal to the good effects, but then like instead of getting a 2, hold on, I don't want to spoil my score. Giving the score a little bit higher than what you would like expect from me saying that is that the cinematography was still pretty good. I do think the cinematography in Black Panther 1 was like exceptional compared to this just being
but it was still really good. Yeah.
But like some of the like effects things I can think of. One, I don't think the wings look good on his ankles. They just look
I
stupid.
thought they were cool. Did you think like they weren't well done, or you just didn't like the character trait of having?
I don't know. I didn't think they looked that good. He looked kind of dumb when he was flying through the air. There was also like a scene where he like jumped off an exploding bridge, and that was like the worst looking scene in the movie because it was like obviously green screen and it just like looked really bad. And then like some other thing, this is honestly, I didn't think about this earlier. This is like the complaint I have with movies that have characters in big suits is that like when Shuri has to wear like an underwater, like one of those like massive bulky suits that like can withstand water pressure, and like it's so obvious that it's just like a green screen of her head in a suit that has nobody in it. Because like it was so obvious that like if they moved the camera this way, it would just be like a flat image of her. But like that's not a big thing, and obviously I don't expect.
I didn't even really notice it. That's definitely what they did, I'm sure.
Yeah, that's just like I see it all the time in movies now. It's hard to not notice it. But like I don't expect the actor to get in a massive suit like that when it's not necessary. So like that doesn't hurt it that bad. But that's just something I thought of. But like, you know, for the most part, it was pretty half and half on the effects. So I give it a 3 out of 5.
Fair.
Acting.
You're first.
I am first. I thought the acting was really good for the most part. Whoever played Anika, one of the staff ladies, I don't know what their like formal name would be called. One of the like bodyguard ladies. She was like really corny. And like her actor was having a blast in this
she was
movie.
having the time of her life.
But like it wasn't good. She wasn't doing the best job. And besides her, I think like everybody was either doing like insanely good, like Lupita Nyong'o, Angela Bassett, who played Shuri. Because she did really good.
She killed it.
Letitia Wright, she was doing insane. There was a cameo actor that did the best in the movie. No surprise if you can defer who I'm talking about. Winston Duke did a really good job. He was in Baku.
Okay.
And then Danai Gurria, who played Okoye, did a really good job. So like, but then there were some like, I think Neymar's actor did a good enough job. I just didn't care for his character. And then Agent Ross's counterpart was like whatever. She was like way too corny. And then Riri's actor, like I can't tell if she was just not doing the best job or if I didn't like her character. Because like, I didn't care for her character, and I think that made her acting seem just like way too out of place for this movie.
Okay.
Like she's not a bad actor, but I don't think it worked in this movie.
No, I think she killed the role. I just think I didn't like the role a whole lot.
Yeah, I just think it was out of place for this movie. But so like, the acting for the most part was like phenomenal, but there was still some hiccups here and there of like some poorly acted scenes. So I gave it a 4 out of 5.
I think the acting was phenomenal, other than like a couple of like very minor side characters who are like kind of iffy.
Yeah.
But for the most part, everyone killed it. Like the dialogues that they go, like the monologues they go throughout the movie are very emotional, and it's like you can feel the impact a lot of the time too. And it's like Angela Bassett kills it. So does Letitia Wright. She kills it. Lupita Nyong'o annihilates it. Like those three in particular, the acting is just on point and amazing. So I gave acting a 5 out of 5.
Okay. Up next is the attachment. You up.
I was very attached to the characters because it was very emotional, especially the tributes that they had to Chadwick Boseman, especially the one at the end, like the final scene. That was very moving. Had me crying in the theater. Amazing. What they did throughout the movie for Chadwick Boseman, it never felt like they were trying to like replace him in the universe or like set up a new Black Panther. It always felt more like they were just honoring his memory because he was just a great guy.
Yeah.
And all the characters, it helped me get attached because the acting was so good. So like when Shuri was crying, it was like it hit because it's like, I don't know, I can feel how she feels. And so I was always very attached. Like whenever the characters in the universe were mourning the death of T'Challa, it's like I felt like I was mourning it with them. I was very attached throughout the movie. So I gave it a 9 out of 10.
Just like the other superhero movies that we've reviewed, I wanted the good guys to succeed, and that was about the extent of how much I cared. Because the two characters that I got like most attached to and like liked the most, and that were like a part of the Black Panther universe, like obviously they're all in the MCU, but that would be in a Black Panther movie, were T'Challa and Killmonger, and you know,
They're not.
both of them are dead now. So like, the characters that I cared most about and wanted to see the most weren't in this movie per se. So like, you know, but that's not to say that I didn't care about these characters. Like I cared about Shuri the most, and I wanted to see everything go right for her. And besides like the vengeance arc at the end of the movie that like kind of hurt the attachment for me because I thought that it was like dumb character decisions. Like I cared enough about everybody that I couldn't give this a negative score. But I also like there's a character that dies and I didn't feel like much about it. Like I was like, okay. I was sad because I wanted to see that actor more.
Fair.
But that was about it. So I wanted the good guys to succeed, and they kind of do that. So 6 out of 10.
Fair.
On to the finale.
I think you're
the
right.
ending of the movie. I am up. So what I'm considering the finale is from like the start of the final battle to that like the credits roll. That's
Right.
the finale for me. And the final battle, I don't really talk about this much in cinematography, but I think that the action kind of got worse as the movie progressed, but it never got to the point of like that was awful. It was just like, okay, this is just like a superhero movie with like static shots essentially of characters punching each other and like, oh look, he used a sword or whatever, but like it was just like some background actors getting killed essentially. But like when there's like one main fight off to the side that was pretty good for the most part. I have an issue with it that doesn't really matter that much, so like who cares? Or I guess I have 2 issues with it, but neither of them I can talk about without getting into spoiler territory, so you know, whatever. So like the fight scene was fun to watch. It just like wasn't organized very well. Like so much was happening, but at the same time it felt like they weren't doing anything to each other. Like they were just like kind of punching each other and that was it. So that was that. And then after the final fight, like the last 10 minutes of this movie were so rushed. Like,
Yeah.
You feel me?
I feel that.
Like the movie's super slow, and then the final fight starts, and then it's over. Like it was so fast, and like they show a scene of one of the characters after the fight that like almost completely undoes all the
Undoes.
undoes
You
all
undoes?
undoes like all the character development that they had just gotten. So that was sad. But it was still like a good finale. And then like if I wasn't including this scene, the finale would have like a way lower score. But the scene of Shuri going to like a beach in Haiti and she like does this like,
You're not gonna spoil it, right?
this isn't a spoiler.
It's the final scene of the movie. It's a movie. I want people to see it for themselves.
Okay,
So like the final scene is really moving. The tribute.
She like has a memorial service by herself for T'Challa, not Chadwick Boseman. So like that was like the best scene in the movie in my opinion. So that was really good. It carried the finale because besides that, the finale was like kind of whatever and rushed. So I gave the finale a 7.
I agree with basically everything you said. The final fight scene, I liked the final fight scene, but the ending, like basically after the final fight, there were like 10 minutes left in the movie, which isn't nearly enough considering there were like probably 2.5 hours of like exposition just about because it's
2 hours 15 minutes. Probably.
Yeah, it's a lot of exposition, and you didn't enjoy the exposition, but I did. I liked it a lot, but it's like it sets the pace, and then the last 10 minutes, like considering you have 2 hours 15 minutes of exposition, you'll need more than just 10 minutes to show where the characters are at after the final battle.
They don't really show any.
Like it's like the final fight scene happens, and like out of nowhere, it's like, all right, we're done fighting, and then it shows what's going on, like back in Wakanda now, like really, really briefly, and then it closes with that really powerful final scene that is amazing and had me crying. So I gave finale 6 out of 10 because I didn't like the finale, but that final scene and the post-credit scene both were awesome.
Yeah. So what was your final score?
Final score overall, I gave the movie an 88 out of 100.
I gave it a 65 out of 100. That's our biggest point gappage yet.
It is.
We haven't had one where one person liked it and one person didn't like the movie yet, though. So
I mean, we both still had positive scores overall.
yeah, if it's above us like a 55, I'd say I liked the movie.
Fair.
Like 45 to 55 is that like mid territory, and then above 55 is like I like the movie.
Below 45.
But not every movie has to be perfect.
True.
So make sure to like and subscribe.
Yeah.
Post notifications on. But I have been Peach.
I have been Crisp.
And we have been Peach Crisp.